Wow, week 2.
Week 2.
Back.
We did it.
We're here.
Yep. Week 1 was
back.
super fun, by the way.
It was
I enjoyed.
great.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. I
did
feel like
too.
there were a lot of things that I was noticing. I'm like, wow, we're gonna figure this out.
This is the thing.
But it's great. I feel like it was fun.
I know. I like our vibe still. Big fan of the palm in between
Yeah.
two ferns. Second shout out to Mr. Zach Galifianakis. So, you know, what you saw.
I did.
It's a thing.
I was confused, and then I was showing our first episode to my dad, and he showed me. We went on YouTube and essentially looked it up, and then we watched a couple of the clips, and I didn't realize it was a thing, but it's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's very
funny.
funny.
It's a real thing. Yeah.
Like dry humor.
Yep. Oh
very
yeah.
much.
Very much.
Like The Office kind of vibe.
Yes.
Yeah. I understood.
Yep. Nothing
but yeah,
sacred.
It's good.
It's pretty funny.
Well, anyways, welcome back to week 2,
Yep.
episode 2 of This Is Our House podcast
Yep.
with Ben and Katie. We
Yep.
are here, ready to go.
Yeah, we are.
Super excited.
And it was my birthday. I'm just gonna say it.
Like, who's gonna mention it?
I wanted to
Yes.
mention it for myself because I was so happy. I'm 32. This is
How
the
was
year.
the-
This
how
is
was
the
the
year I
birthday?
become a father. By the way,
So excited!
isn't that crazy? Yes, my wife
I was gonna
is
say, are we
pregnant.
gonna mention baby Z?
Yes.
And when is that gonna happen?
July.
Because
No, July. It's when
I'm
our
so
baby,
excited, you
our baby
guys.
boy is due. So, I know
Knew
it
it
was
was a
pretty
boy.
crazy. This morning, I had him almost like. Actually, it was last night. I was chilling. I were watching TV and hanging out on the couch, and I was just like, I was opening up because we were in Florida for a conference, and so like my family, they sent me some cards and stuff for my birthday, and I was opening them last night, and I was like, holy crap, this is like the last birthday I have where I don't have a little human
oh my
to care for.
gosh!
Like,
Oh my gosh,
and,
so
yeah.
cute.
Technically, I guess I am already a father.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I already
100%.
am one.
Ben,
But
you
like
have a
in my
son.
hands. Isn't
Oh
that
my
crazy?
gosh, it's crazy.
I know.
Guys, I
That's
have been
exciting.
waiting for this moment for so many years. It's really all about me here, clearly. And I know what he's gonna look like. I guessed it. I knew it was gonna be a boy like 5 years ago. I was calling.
Katie's very invested
I'm
into
gonna
our
put my
child.
prediction now. Oh yeah, I'm so invested. Listen, I love little kids, and especially baby Ben and Shelly's gonna be perfect. Okay, but this is my prediction. I'm getting it on the record now, like legit the record, the podcast. And because I knew it was gonna be boy, and I always have said, me and my friends, I shouldn't say just me, me and people that were in my grade, we said a little boy with Ben's blonde hair with Shelly's curls. And he'd be like a little surfer with like long blonde the curls when he's like a little kid. Oh my gosh.
Dude,
Putting
listen,
in my guess now. We'll see.
I hope so. If he comes out with like black straight hair, it's gonna be like,
Straight.
Oh.
Oh, like you're, I see.
as mine's not very, but
I'll be fine too.
it'll be great.
I'm just saying that's my prediction.
That's the podcast prediction.
And I want to be like, have it on the record that I mentioned that before
There
we
you
see
go.
that in like 4 years or whatever.
That's
when
right.
it's
We'll do a
he's
follow-up
toddler,
episode
so.
once this comes.
Yeah, it would be great. Anyways, but back to your birthday. Speaking of which, okay, so we have to tell a little story because we have
Okay.
to give them the backstory on this. So, guys, I knew Ben's birthday was coming up, and okay, well, first of all, grab the water bottle for reference. Okay, guys, so Ben has this water bottle, which
I've
I'm
had it
sure
for
you've
a
all
long
seen.
time. This is
and
like
it
my thing, like
really
a trademark of me.
Yes, but it really bothers me that there's no strap on the water bottle. Like, I don't know if you're not watching this on YouTube, but
The cap just comes
essentially
off.
it's the kind.
It's just-
what kind of bottle
It's
is
an
that called?
Nalgene.
Yes.
This is an Nalgene.
So where there'd be the strap around where the lid is.
Yeah, the plastic connect,
so
so
it's
you
gone.
don't lose your cap.
It is not
It
there.
broke off a long time ago.
So there's just been and it really bothers me. I don't know why. It just has always been annoying to me that there's no strap. I'm like, just get a new water bottle.
It's so annoying. How can you
So-
function without a?
Yes, I know. I
Connection to
know.
your
I don't know
cap.
why it bothers me, but it does. The point is, so a couple months ago, I was like, it's weird. I was making fun of Ben again for the no strap water bottle, and I mentioned, okay, for your birthday, what if I get you a water bottle? And he said, okay. But then I said, listen, I was like, I will get, if I pick it out, you have to use it as replacement.
I will.
No matter what it looks like, no matter what I get.
Okay.
So, guys,
Here it is.
he's going for his birthday, but
I'm
here
about-
it
this
is on the podcast.
The
We're
last time you're
to-
going to see this water bottle.
Oh my gosh. So we have the present right here.
I'm
You're
so
gonna go
excited.
ahead and open it and
Okay.
discover what it is. I feel like this is my best work yet. He's committed no matter what it looks like.
I am.
Can you imagine I put like Hello Kitty on it or something? That'd be funny.
I'm in.
It's a couple steps away.
This is
I'm just
it.
kidding.
Okay.
I think you're actually gonna like it.
Here it is.
I think you're gonna think it's cool.
Yes.
The reaction.
Taylor Swift Midnights.
But it's cool. And it looks the same style.
This is actually hilarious.
I know.
And awesome.
I'm so excited.
Midnight.
So now
Dude,
you can be a Swiftie
I'm officially in.
I did
By
check with
force.
Shelly. She said it was great.
Awesome. I knew she,
I
of
hope the
course she
color
does.
scheme works.
It's great.
I went with, there was a couple options and I felt like this was the more, it's kind of like you can't really tell. You know, from a distance, it's not like anyone's going to be like, oh, that's, you know, like Taylor Swift record. They won't know. But it's subtle and you'll be that much cooler. I'm just saying.
This single-handedly.
Forcing Ben to be a
This
Swiftie.
single-handedly made me that much cooler. Just this water bottle. This is awesome. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
This is very kind. Okay.
Guys.
Wow.
Oh.
We're gonna go
He's
ahead.
doing
and-
it right now.
We're gonna go ahead and get our first usage out of this.
Wow,
You ready for
this is amazing,
I know.
yeah.
We're just gonna go ahead and transfer a little water transfer right now.
Oh, wow.
Sound of Glory going into.
Oh, we should have held the mic up really close. It was like ASMR.
No, that's weird. I think. Don't you think?
That's weird.
All right, it's official right now. Ready?
Oh, wow. It probably needs to be washed, but
Definitely does.
Yeah.
That tastes like plastic.
I was gonna say I
But
just gave it to you how it
we're
came.
in.
But
Taylor Swift
wow,
Midnights.
you did it. You committed.
I did.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you very
So,
much. All right, there it
it's
is.
Wednesday while we're filming this, so everyone
Get ready.
will see it tonight. Hopefully.
They will. That they
Well,
shall.
they'll see it before this comes out, but
It's awesome.
anyways, there it is.
Thank you, Katie.
I do understand that the other one does have sentimental value though, so I will.
It's okay.
I will be okay if it's a shared
Every now and
usage. Yeah, 100%. I don't want it to be I was like, I'm not gonna get you something if it's gonna end up in the pantry.
Yeah.
You know,
This
sitting
is
there
good.
forever. Pantry?
This is
Cupboard?
in.
I don't know. Whatever.
Yep. All right.
Wow. So fun. Happy birthday, Ben.
Thank you, Katie.
So great.
Thank you so much. So what do we got today?
Yeah,
Here's some
so
questions.
we're gonna get into why we're here. So we have asked our questions. We've asked you guys all the things. Been like, let it be open to whatever we want to talk about.
Yep.
Do you want to start us off with the first one?
Sure. Okay, so
That first question.
we have one of our students asked us, how come God feels closer and farther in different seasons? How come God feels closer and farther in different seasons? Which, this is a fantastic question.
Mm-hmm.
This is a question that every single Christian will ask at some point in time.
Right.
Or really any person at all. Some people, this keeps them out of it. They're like, well, if God's just close at sometimes and distant at others, and how do you even know that those are legit at all? What are your thoughts on this, Katie? What do you think? How have you experienced made sense of this?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things why it's so frustrating is that it kind of doesn't make sense. Honestly, like you can, I feel like there's times, and I feel like we talked about, you know, when you have either like a really amazing moment, maybe it's just like on a Sunday in worship, but maybe it's the winter camp pie or whatever it is, but you have those big moments and then you feel super close, and then it's like, well, okay, naturally as time goes on, of course you're not going to feel as close in that moment just because of you start to go through the motions and whatever. But I think, and so that makes sense to me, but I think those the moments more where it's just like you're going through the motions, normal seasons of life, and sometimes you feel really close to God and that everything kind of is, I think in my experience too, when it's like everything's going my way, like life is so easy, so great right now, of course you're gonna be like, thanks God, like this is amazing, like or whatever. And then when things start to, you know, not fall apart, but just unravel a little bit, and from that like quote unquote perfect cycle that you've been in, that's what I feel like when it gets to be farther. And then again, that kind of makes sense, but then there's also just the moments where it's like you feel like you're in a funk, and for some reason it's like I'm doing, because I've done that where it's like I'm in my, you know, like my quiet time routine, everything's normal, everything's I'm doing the motions or whatever it is, but then sometimes that's what it is. It's like I'm going through the motions and I'm starting to lose that connection, and then and it's like sometimes it's just like I don't know why, but it's where I'm at right now, and it's, I think the hardest part is the pushing through and knowing that there's going to be moments again where you're going to feel closer, but getting through that. I don't know. Yeah,
for sure. I think this is actually just like this question, we make this almost more spiritual than it actually, like, I think needs. Maybe that's not the right way of saying that. It's like it is a very spiritual question. It's also a very human question because we actually experience seasons of closeness and distance between real people too, right?
Yeah,
like
that's true.
So that's what I mean by that. Like, and that's a spiritual thing too. I'll put this on the record too. Like, there's no difference between like being as like spiritual beings and human beings. Like it's all connected, right? Everything. I'm very much a believer that like spirit, soul, mind, body. Like that's our whole experience, and so our faith is all connected to those things. But okay, I digress. With this question, the point I'm trying to make is that we experience proximity with our human relationships in a similar way too, right? There's times when it's like feel super close to this person or super distant from that, and then like especially with family, so and close friends. So like my closest, two of my closest friends, one lives in New Zealand, one lives in Colorado. I see them, like the one in Colorado I see a handful of times throughout the year. We talk on the phone. The one in New Zealand, talk to him on the phone. Like we'll FaceTime, catch up. I see him like once every couple of years.
Right, yeah.
And so like, but the reality is that like the moment that I get back to being those guys, like when we catch up, it's like instantaneously pick up where we left off, and like you feel tight and close, but like I'm not around them much. And so then there's other times like other people that you're close with here and like that are in your immediate life that can feel distant and far away if you're doing life on life all the time together because you're in the ordinary routine things. This is one of the reasons why like marriage and like long-term relationships are so hard.
Yeah.
Is because when you live the ordinary, mundane, routine stuff with somebody, that's like with friends too. Like you feel close and then you feel distant. And you're right, that's part of what it means to be human. And so of course it's like that with God too. Like there are times when God feels far and there are times when God feels close, and it's because we're called to live every ordinary, mundane times with him and to invite him into all places. What you said about God feeling close when things are good and then distant when things are bad, like that is of course the default if we're viewing God as like, oh, God is the cause of all of that. Like everything good in my life comes from God, which I actually do believe. But then if you say everything bad in my life is because God's distant from me, no, that's not quite true.
Yeah.
Like God's present with us no matter what. We give thanks for recognizing the good things in our lives when he's, like when we can see that. But that doesn't, like when we're in a hard situation, when things feel like they're lacking and we feel without, I think that God is actually, the promise of Scripture is that he's actually just as close then too.
Right.
And that's why practicing thankfulness and gratitude is super important, because even in really hard times, there's going to be some, even just one thing that you can be like, okay, like I see how God's with me in this. It can be a really small thing, right? Like the smallest of things. Like someday I might be really sad, but I see this Taylor Swift water bottle, and I'll go, oh my gosh, God was so good to me when Katie gave me this water bottle as a gift.
Truly.
Like, and that's like a silly example, but like, yeah, I think it's like we have to recognize that that is part of what it means to be human, to feel close and distant from the people that we love, and then from the God who we worship as well. And the truth is, this is what's different. Like with people, we actually are distant at times from them. Like they feel distant and far. God is always close. Like he's never not. And so there's a really beautiful recognition actually of going, gosh, God feels far. I feel distant from him. And then to go, but he's not.
Yeah.
And to insist that God is like, nope, God's with me even when he feels far away. And there's like a really cool thing to go, oh, that feeling of distance just simply isn't like, there's a part of it that's just not fully true.
Right. It's like, oh, sorry. I was saying, it's like that, like, I'm always with the metaphors, but like I feel like the thing where it's like we're on this roller coaster and he's the steady straight line in the middle. Being
that's
like,
good.
God's never changing. He's on the, on that in the middle line. Well, we're feeling like this, and obviously, so when we're in the peaks or the valleys or whatever, it's gonna feel like we're far, but as opposed to like when we come back towards the middle, but it's us as opposed to him, which, not to like blame us, but
but
no,
it is
realizing that
maybe
it's something that I can change or somehow I can rethink or something,
Yeah.
It depends on the situation.
It's like it's just a different posture in looking at the whole thing. I want to ask you this, like with that question, can you share a season when you felt, like Katie, can you talk about like when this time when you felt close to God? When's the time when you felt distant from God?
There's lots of seasons trying to rifle through. I think, let's see. Okay, because this is the immediate. And I can give maybe different ones for both, but
Yeah.
the first thing that comes to mind for feeling close is my trip that I did to whatever, Chick Unite, whatever you want to call it. That was like, and obviously since our students now just went to, they'll understand the experience of how, that's just one of those, you're completely immersed, there's so much going on and you're getting all these amazing moments. And so the first thing that I think of being super close to God was definitely in that moment. I think also for me it was one of the, not the first time feeling close to God, but like really, like I feel like I finally got it. I feel like I was finally in it, So that's what sticks out to be. And, I was surrounded by my really close people, all my friends, all my, the people that I was the closest with in my life, and then getting those amazing experiences. So to me, that was one of the ones where it's like, of course, I felt really close to God then. But also in like contrast, I feel like times, one of the times being that I felt really close to God just in the mundane is actually right now. I would say since like January, I've just been, and January, for me, tends to be one of the most boring months. It's like nothing's going on. Like the holidays are over. You're just you get back in the routine. So the mundaneness of life kind of starts to sink in again. And I kind of always try to use that as an opportunity to be like, well, since there is nothing going on, like it kind of gives me an open opportunity or open door to be like, okay, well, maybe this is going to be a month where we're really going to focus on our relationship with Jesus and making things something like a new habit or a new thing or some way that I can start the year feeling extra close to God too. And because again, it's kind of that idea where it's kind of like on us to like, if we want to be intentional about that, we kind of have to do something new or do something to make it to make us feel that. So anyway, so for me, I'd say right now, just in the recent month, I've just added a couple, switched up my devos, switched up some new things to make it more exciting for me, just being less, not boring, but just to switch things up. You get bored of things easily. I've been, there's a small hill behind my house that it's like a 10-minute walk up there, but you get up there and there's a bench and there's a view of Nevada. It's exciting, but it's a pretty view. Yeah. And that's been like a new thing where I'm like almost every morning now I'm just like walking up there and
that's awesome.
Even taking the time to just just sit in that and absorb just like not quite sunrise, but the sun being up and being morning, but you know what I mean? And so that kind of thing. And right now I've just been I'm just in one of those seasons, and that's kind of all that I can explain about it, because sometimes it's just like that's all you can explain is sometimes it's just like, well, I just am. So, and again, I'm just going through the motions of life, though. I'm not in like a specific trip or whatever it is. So I feel like for me, the two different examples from the opposite ends of the spectrum where I felt really close. Yeah. And then for feeling far, I don't know. I'm going to think. Let me think. Here, you do close, and while you're talking, I'll think a little bit about far. I mean, there definitely have been, but there's just a lot to rifle through.
No, for sure. I think so. For me, one of the times I felt just so close to the Lord was actually like throughout like my sophomore, junior, and senior year of college. Mm-hmm. Like I was. So I went to Colorado State University, go Rams, and Rams for life.
Rams.
And
Rams.
And so what we did was, what I did, I was really involved with different ministry groups. I was leading worship for a small college group called The Source, and then I was playing drums and for a group called Crew. And anyways, I just grew as a worship leader in that time. Mm-hmm. And I think that also in my studies, I was a communication studies major. And I just remember going to college. So your freshman year was like a pretty, gosh, this is weird. You're out of your parents' house. You start to feel lonely. You're like, I'm really like, oh my gosh, like my childhood is over. You know, you have that kind of realization. But for me, like, I went into that being like, God, what do you have me here for? And I felt like by sophomore year of college, I just like, God's graciousness was to me so evident. Like, I just was like, oh man, like I'm growing in how I love worship and feeling his presence in these things and learning the differences between like what it means to pursue him excellently and like with the craft of music, but also like the heart posture of worship. And so like I was around musicians who were like super gifted but kind of jerks at times. And I was like, oh, that's not worship. But then like, and then there's like, oh, like I'm gonna lead worship in this space where no one cares how actually things sound at all, but people are getting after it. And then both matter. I don't know, I just felt like God was teaching me so much about what it means to choose to worship him and through all of that. And then I also felt like in my studies as a communication studies major, I was, I just like the way that I learned how to think about language and how that shapes our lives and our world and ourselves and our relationships. It just like, I was just like so enamored by God's presence in all of that. And so I just felt like God was just like, oh my gosh, God is so evident in my life.
Yeah.
And I had great friends and like that also loved the Lord and like, so it was easy. It was that's the thing, it was easy to feel that way. So that was a time where I felt like super, super close to God. And I think for a time where I felt very distant or God felt distant from me, so right after college, I moved to Kansas City, and I took an internship at a church, and it was so crazy because I felt like God was so clear to me, like, here's what I have next for you, and it's in Kansas City, which as a snowboarder from Colorado, I was like, what the heck? Like, I never want to leave Colorado. I want to stay there. I could stay there for forever. Great friends, love the Colorado culture at large. I was dating Shelly at the time, and then God's like, all right, go to Kansas City, and I just was like, I need to do that, and so I said yes to it, but that meant I said no to everything else, and it was like starting from I was like, I have no friends. I'm doing long distance with Shelly, like I live in a house. Shout out to the shoe carts, by the way. Love the shoe cart family. They were amazing. But the house was basically like a straight shot away from the church. It was like
so like there and back,
60
there and
blocks.
back, there
yeah,
and back.
I drove straight.
You go nowhere else.
So my world was like
sounds familiar.
Yes, my world was like it was like a straight line to the church, back to the house, back to the church, and I had no friends. I was so lonely. And I was like, God, what did you do? And so this is I think the thing is like I don't know, kind of connecting the dots here. It's just when we feel God feels distant, it's actually we feel lonely. We feel like at least for me, like I felt lonely. And but it was that insistence that God is still at work and he's doing something in my heart, and that required me to lean into a new practice. And I remember I got to a point where I was like, I need to really pray about this. Yeah. And I invited people to pray for me. Right. Like I invited basically that first year in Kansas City, got to the end of it, I was ready to move back to Colorado. And I'm not going to tell this whole story, but basically I was like, either I go to Colorado or I stay in Kansas City. And of course I'm like, I want to go back to Colorado. Like that's where all my family and friends are. And done with long distance, like I can remove that. And then it was like, but if you stay in Kansas City, like you'll continue your internship and with these students, with this church. And I felt like again, there's that Holy Spirit, I think I'm supposed to stay in Kansas City, but I really want to go back to Colorado. And so I went to I called my friends who were in Colorado. I the people who I trusted in Kansas City. I called my family, so what do you think God has for me? And the resounding answer at the end of it with everybody was Ben, we think you should stay in Kansas City. And so what that did for me was it was crazy because God used that season of just deep loneliness for me. I had to then ask a different question. So God, what are you doing? What do you have me here for? And he was faithful to show me no, here's what I want for you. I want you to stay and I will give you everything you need. And I wouldn't have leaned into prayer in that way if that didn't happen. So I think seasons of loneliness are actually invitations for God to grow us closer to him, because we have to ask a different question. Anyways, that's my 2 stories. What's your, do you think of one for family?
Weirdly similar. So I was going to say, I think the one that sticks out the most to me would be the season, I guess, that sticks out the most to me would be similarly. So I started this internship July 2021, so summer after I graduated, and then so started in the summer, starting to figure things out. I had just been deciding what was going to happen, as all seniors do and everything, and being like, all right, God, here we go, like, guess we're doing this, and figuring that out, and then fall came the first semester, and all my friends left, and so similarly, I'm like, okay, all my friends are going off to college, living on their own, getting to do all the cool things that everyone wants to do. You're 18, you want to move out, you want to go to college, do all the things, and I was living at home still, same experience, feeling like, oh, so I'm just going to the church and home all the time, and figuring out what I was doing, and at the time I didn't have any sort of what's after this plan, which I'm such a planner person. That is like my biggest fear, not having a plan for little things, let alone for my life. I was like, okay, here we go. And kind of feeling this, like, I don't know what's coming next. So I don't know when it's not gonna end as if I was miserable, but it's like the back and forth and there's nothing else after that. I'm away from all my friends. I'm jealous because I'm seeing all these things that they're sending me, posting all the things, these cool things that are happening to them. Even the smallest things, like, we're decorating my dorm room. I'm like, oh, so fun. I wish I could redecorate, that kind of thing. So I think being in the same place, and it's that loneliness of just and it's like things are new, things have changed, you're lonely, you're feeling like, and there's partially for me, it being the first semester, this imposter syndrome that I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm supposed to know what I'm doing, and I don't know how to do anything, and kind of feeling like, God, what are you doing? Like, why did you make me do this? I'm not the right person. I'm not meant to be in this, because I'm freaking out, and I'm lonely, and I'm so like all those things, and I'm like trying to act like I have it all together and everything, but then in reality, I'm like feeling so distant from God, because I think when I think for me at least, when I feel the furthest away, it's the times where it's like, not necessarily doing things you don't want to do, because obviously I said yes.
Right.
Obviously I do want to do it. I love you all. I love being here. Don't get me wrong. But like in those seasons where you're just like, it's the things that you feel like when you're noticing what you're giving up, what you're saying no to, whatever.
Yes.
And that's like becoming more prevalent in your mind or focused on than the good things. And then that's when I feel like when you start to feel far, because you're focusing on the loneliness, the whatever. Yeah. And not seeing, meanwhile, I was getting all these cool, starting to go to all these things, learning so much, but where I was learning, but I didn't see myself learning. I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. As opposed to being like, it's okay. Why would you know what you're doing? You just graduated high school. You don't know how to do this. You're being taught to do this. So things like that, where I just, you get so in your head about that kind of stuff. And that's just human. Like, of course, everybody feels that way. But so I think, similarly.
Yeah, that's so good.
Ben, we're like the same person.
I know.
Anyways. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
But great question.
And again, I think it's just like, well, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to make a joke that moment's over. Continue.
I think that it's just knowing, it's like the truth is, in the rehearsal for us is just like, God is here with me. He's not distant, he's not far. And when we feel lacking or without, it's I think God allows us to feel those ways to show us, no, you actually do need just me.
Yeah.
Nothing else, because all those comforts now that you're used to have been stripped away. That's what it was for me. Every time that I'm like, God feels so far. It's like, well, actually, I've leaned into comfort on things that aren't God, that aren't bad either.
Right.
But I've especially like when I moved to Kansas City, it was like, oh, time with my friends, time with Shelly, the comfort of home being right there, which are all great things. They're not bad at all. And some people, they have that their whole lives, and that's awesome.
Right.
But for me, God was like, I need to show you that you love these things more than you actually love me. And it was and that was just for me. I was like, holy crap. And it broke me, but then I got to lean into deeper level. And so I think, I don't know, there's always just an invitation that God can use those seasons, and it's like, how can you trust him just a little bit more? to show you a little bit more of his character and to maybe dig at a part of your heart that you didn't realize you need to give over to him.
Yeah.
So, good question.
I know, very good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we could talk on all of these questions for like hours, because then I like to talk, if you haven't noticed. Kind of we're doing a podcast. But yeah, very good question. We will move on to the next one just because.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I think it goes well
Totally.
with this one. But the next question we got was, what are more uncommon but accessible ways of connecting with God? So things other than the quote-unquote basic things, like reading the Bible or going to church, which I like because that is such a church Sunday school thing for us to be like, pray, read your Bible, go to church, show the things. You're like, okay, I'm doing that, but... So I like that. I like that. What are uncommon but accessible ways of connecting with God. So that's cool.
Uncommon but what do you think?
I know, there's lots of ways that we can go with that. Okay, so I actually was just, I was actually just talking about this to two of our middle schoolers that I was hanging out with, and so we were talking about this and like little things or like little tiny practices that don't even like, because the easier ones for me are things where it's not like I'm setting aside time, which is also important, but things that I can do as I'm going through life, because that's something that you can just easily implement. And so something for me that I think it's just an easy thing and practice to be in is just, I don't know, in the last like couple years, I would say, even just trying to, when you're in like a moment of like, I don't know, I feel like I'm very like a thoughtful, nostalgic-y type person where I'm like, no, like I'll be in a good moment and I can see it from like the outside perspective. Like I'll be like, I can tell I'm gonna be like reminiscing on this moment later.
I can imagine myself thinking about what this moment was like in 3 years.
100%. So
take it in.
I don't know if this is something everyone is able to do, but if you're like me in that way, like it'll be like little things, like like one that keeps coming to mind was just like, it's just like, when you're like one time over the summer, like hanging out with my friends, my friend Kat has a convertible, so we were like driving with the top down, listening to good music, like it was just a good classic summer moment. But and there's like a million examples of moments like that where things that I'm like, like God is so good, and then just that phrase, just being like, like God is so good, and acknowledging when I'm like having a really good time, where I'm in a really joyful moment or whatever it is, and kind of being like, well, that it's not like coincidence. It's not just like, it just like happened, and acknowledging like, or like just using that as like a praise or a thanks of like, so little things. Even like I'm trying to think of something even more dumb than that, but just like, I don't know, like a really good meal or like whatever you're eating or something where it's like you just some Taco Bell that you really needed to have. I don't know if that's your thing,
this
but
Taco Bell is. I'm gonna remember this Taco Bell.
If you're like
in 5 years,
this Taco Bell is so good, or whatever it is, something that's like hitting, but and then being like in that moment, like specifically, not just like the reflect. So I'm just saying, because I'm someone who thinks about those things a lot, but so maybe that doesn't work for everyone. But if you are like me in that way, like in those moments being like, and whether it's just in your head or you say it out loud, when I'm with my friends and everything and we're doing something, I'm like, guys, I love us all so much. Like they make fun of me all the time because I'm just constantly like, do you think we're like gonna not be friends or something? They're like confused on why I keep mentioning it, but I'm just like, I just love you all so much. God's so good. We're all together. Like getting to acknowledge and thank and praise Him for those moments. And so I think that's a very uncommon, but just but it's accessible because it's easy. It's just as you're going through life and acknowledging moments, as opposed to, because I think also and maybe that action is what helps me remember them too long term. Because I'm like, I don't know why, but and that when you are going back to the other question, when you are in those seasons feeling far from God, being able to remember like, but all those moments where I was like, God, thank you for this, and knowing that they're going to come back around. There's going to be more things like that, but I feel like acknowledging that's something that I really enjoy doing, because I think it just, and it like opens your eyes to truly like how much of, whether it's like a comfort thing or if it's just like the blessings in general in your life, but just being aware of that, and
I love that example because
it helps you be a more joyful person, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
In my experience,
you're tapping into your joy.
Right.
Like how is God wired you to
I'm happy right now, but
joy?
Yeah.
Which is like, you're talking about like all those things have to deal with like memories with people.
Right.
You're like, except for the food one, but even like imagining you're having the food with somebody. You know what I mean? Like you're tapping into it's like the memory is like, I'm with the people I love. This is awesome. Yeah. And I'm realizing you're just like, I'm created for these moments, like to be with people who love me and I love as well. And that's just a reflection of what God has for us. Like God loves us. He wants us to know how much he loves us. And when you're just able to connect those dots, that's it. I think I love that, like being aware of like the moments where you go, oh, this is so cool. Like this moment right here. I think for me, when I ask that question, like what are some other ways that I connect with God outside of the basics?
Yeah.
For me, it is like every time I talk with with friends, and I won't say close friends, but friends, this is how you become close friends. When you talk to your friends about actual things in your life, when you talk about God amongst them. And so like for me, when I was in high school, that was like my closest friends to this day. Many of them were formed in those years when we just simply realized like, wait, like let's talk about God together. Like in our questions together and what we're experiencing and wrestling with. And when I talk to my buddies Bert and Barry, so like you think that's like almost sounds like a show in themselves. Bert and Barry. Bert's one in Colorado, Barry's one in New Zealand. I became friends with those guys super close in high school because we literally would spend like hours together talking about our faith, talking about what God was doing and how that related to how we were like navigating being in relationships, like with each other, with friends, with our like the people that we were crushes on, like our girlfriend, whatever, like all the above. And for me, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually experiencing the presence of God in our midst. And that's like when Jesus is like, wherever two or more gathered in my name, that's it. Like you actually, like he means that. Like he gives us his spirit when you have two, like when you just simply be like, I'm not just gonna like just kind of joke. There's always space to joke around and to have fun and like, do the thing that you do with your friends. Like, but when you take it one step deeper to go like, I want to talk about the real things in your life. What is like something you struggle with? What do you see in me that I need to like work out? I don't know. Like those are the questions. Yeah. If you have friends that you can do that with, or if you're like, I don't have friends I can do that with, well, try to pick one and start just asking those questions.
Try to pick one.
What do you think? I want to talk to you about I want to talk to you about faith stuff like that. That to me, gosh, I've experienced God tremendously through just talking about Him with people outside of church.
Yeah, I like that too. I almost didn't even think about it, but as soon as you said it, I'm like, yeah, that's good. In my experience, it was always, and I think that's true of being like, it's because it's a brief, like not brief friend, what's the word I'm thinking? Like more of an acquaintance kind of friend where you're like, you're not super close yet. Yeah. That can seem like, I definitely think it can seem like intimidating or like to be the one to bring it up. But I think what you can get to like, let's talk about our faith with those deep friends and how you make those is you can start, because you're talking about all the things that you normally talk about. All friends talk about their crushes, their things in their life, whatever. But it's bringing God into that conversation that you're already having, kind of. And I think that can be a little bit more natural too than the like, let's talk about faith, but being like, like bringing it in, especially with your friends that you're already comfortable. They're people you're comfortable around, you're close with, and so
right.
My friends and I, it was always like. In high school, it's like, you're having a sleepover and then you're up late or whatever. And so it was always like the after hours and you have the deep talks that go on for hours. And so that's always something that, we have. But it's the same thing where you're just talking about whatever's going on, which all high schoolers talk to each other. So that's not going to be a problem. Yeah. It's just bringing God into those conversations of being you're for like the seniors, you're stressed about, college next year and all the things that come with that and the deciding whatever, being like, when you're talking with your friends about it, maybe being like, okay, these are options. Like, what do you think God's asking you to do? Have you prayed about it? Have you done this? And bring that into the conversation.
So good.
Because I feel like sometimes we get stuck on it's like small group time is when we talk about God, but then it doesn't need to be that structured, that's something we do at youth group. Yes, because it's a structured activity event, but when you're with your friends, you can naturally, God is in all those questions. That doesn't need to be read off of a paper.
Well, the whole reason what we do at youth group, even when we do small groups at youth group, is to model a practice so that you can do. It's like you would actually do that elsewhere too. You can talk about these things with. You don't have to be at youth group to talk about God. You can talk about God whenever you want, and but you come to youth group to build those relationships that you can do that with.
Right.
And so that's why the basics, coming to church is such a big deal, because then you're actually You cultivate community of people you know you can be safe with those questions with. And not that you can't bring those things up to other people. Like, I've had great conversations with people who, like, some friends of mine in Colorado are not believers at all.
Yeah.
And like, but I've had, when you have a mutual level of respect for each other, then you have great conversations about faith where you disagree, but there's already friendship built there. Like, I had those established. And so, but like, there's just an easier way of doing that when you have people at the church already. It's like, oh, I know I can talk to this person about my faith. And so I think that's a big way. Another way, like, so this is just a huge, like, so you talk about like walking in nature, and like, I think where we live gives us the benefit of the doubt of like, I'm gonna go on a walk and get off my phone and just go be outside. And I think there's a profound reality of connecting with God when you don't do it this like, I'm just gonna go connect with nature. Like, you're like, no, like, God created all this.
Right.
And if I can like be aware of his presence, so many people, and I think that like the outdoor, okay, I'm gonna nerd out for a second. You ready for this? Like, so many people like are drawn to these like very spiritual journeys of finding themselves in the outdoors. You have books and movies about it, like people who hike the El Camino, or like do like going to Mount Everest or like Mount Kilimanjaro, like anything crazy, like outdoor adventure. People in California especially tap into like, oh, I gotta be an outdoor person. Like REI, the company, like literally like their whole marketing strategy is tapping into this need for us to be outside. And so and there's like tons of science, especially when it comes to depression, anxiety, depression, that has shown that simply being outside for like even 10 minutes a day, like just 10 minutes a day, radically alters your mental health. Okay, so those are the facts, the statistics that we see that. And for me, I'm just like, because God shows us his presence in those things. And so all this stuff, people are searching for like a deeper sense of awareness of the Creator. And I think that everyone is searching for that. And now, of course, there's different religions, there's different like philosophies and spiritualities that lean into like the outdoors. And I think it's like, okay, great. As a Christian, of course, like I believe so firmly that it's like, no, like you're desiring to know that God created all of this, and it's good, like the Garden of Eden narrative. Like it's good. It's good for me to be in it, amongst it, and when I'm in it, I get more connected to this God who loves me, and I'm more aware of myself, and I'm okay. And so that's just like I think the capital T truth that permeates through all of this stuff is like when we get outside, off our phones, like in his presence, like we experience God. And as Christians, we get to connect that dot right to Jesus and go, gosh, like you said, God, thank you for this. This is rad. Thank you for letting me be outside right now. Thank you that you created this for me, that this was purposeful and intentional, and this isn't random, and that I get to like experience your goodness here. Thank you for that. That's so
literally this morning.
I
did my behind my thing house, and the way that the sun, like, you know, and then you get up at the top of the hill and you're like catching your breath or whatever, and then you get to have that moment. And I was one of them, but that wasn't even with people. You were saying how it's like when I'm with people, that's definitely one thing, but even I'm by myself looking at the thing and just being like, thank you. This is a joyful moment. I'm appreciating nature. I'm getting to be in this moment with
so good.
With Jesus, and then just acknowledging that joyfulness. And then I take I love, I mean, that's just me doing it in the morning, but one of the reasons why I like that too, that I take it with my day. And that thing about like just 10 minutes outside, like, I mean, that was like a half an hour, but still just that much. And then I'm like, I'm ready to go for my day. Like, I feel like, you know, empowered and being like, all right, I'm ready, you know, for whatever God has for the day. And that's kind of part of it, because I'm praying, you know, as I'm doing it and being like, all right, like, here's a big day today. What are we doing? What is that going to look like? And, you know, taking that.
So good. So, do you have any other like ideas that come to mind for you, that ways you connect with God?
Yeah, I think. Oh, I was just going to say. I mean, I know this is probably categorized as one of the basic things too, because we, you know, worship is probably categorized in that. But with worship, being, I think, the focus of, or not the focus, but part of it being the music aspect
Totally,
of it. And
yeah.
I mean, we
was
can
just
talk
thinking
about
the
it
same
as both
thing.
of us being musicians, talking about like how, we
Yeah.
connect with God in music. So that's kind of a basic thing. But because for us it's music, but for someone else it might be, like art, like painting, like Blake and his art, like that's gonna be for him, like that can be one of the ways, you know what I mean?
With, like, with Ben Ward, like have you seen, I don't know if you've seen his drawings. Ben Ward's a sophomore.
Actually haven't.
Epic.
I would love to.
Oh
though.
yeah, he's.
That's all.
But it's like I look at him, I'm like, dude, you are tapping into the deeper nature of your gifting, because the way you draw is so epic and that is worship. It's super rad. But yeah, Blake for sure is like that. But yeah, check out Ben's stuff.
And it doesn't even, that's like the art category, but maybe it's like, I don't even know. Like it could be anything, and it's whatever. And so I don't want to say like hobby and categories as that, but whatever. It's we all have those things where it's like, I don't know, you call it your thing, honestly, but like your I don't even know your interest, but there's a way, and whatever it is that through that, you can connect with God through it.
Yeah.
So whatever it is.
I think like the way that I think about it too is like, what is the thing that you do? And I'm actually gonna like be really like, I want to be really like kind of explicit about what these things I don't consist of. I don't think that like, gosh, I'm really good about scrolling through social media.
Right,
I'm really good about creating
right.
content. I'm really good, like, God uses those things. But I think like, strip away that idea, just because there's been so much that's showing like, that just isolates us more and more. But like, what is the thing that you do that you're like, gosh, when I do this, I'm in like the total zone. Like, there's nothing else that matters, and I'm full of joy. And I think if we can recognize that's the thing that God has for me to do.
Yes.
So like, I think about for myself, you talk about just communicating and talking and stuff like that. Whenever, like, one of these, I'm a youth pastor and like in ministry, I love like giving talks, like cultivating youth talks. I get to preach a few times at the church. Like whenever I do that, and I'm in the, like whenever I don't know how to describe the feeling. Like it's just like, oh, God has me. Like this is one of the things that I'm wired to do, and I love doing it. And another thing for me, like whenever I play the drums, that's another thing. Like I'm just in the zone. Like there's just, it's like, if you can just recognize that. Snowboarding was that for me for forever. When I was in high school, I remember like, it was so funny. I got to a point with snowboarding where I was like, I'd be like on the lift and like it's snowing and like have my face covering down and like the snow's like pelting my face, like just tiny little cold dots, which most people are like, oh, that sounds miserable. And I was just like, I love this. Like God is so present in this for me. And like, or like I'd be snowboarding and you'd have a moment where you stop and you just look out. There's like this break through the trees and you can, it's just like, oh, this is so rad. And so I think there's such, everyone has something. Hopefully everyone has something outside of just engaging technology that they do that gives them life. And when you enter into that, you can recognize this is actually a form of worship if I'll allow it. If I can recognize that God is present. And that's the same, like talking about that first question, right? God's with me in this. So there's that recognition for sure.
Sweet.
I was going to say one more thing with worship music.
Go for it.
That's because all of us, I mean, everyone listens to music.
Yeah.
Most people listen to music. Maybe not everybody, but most people listen to music. I think there's also, here's a direct way to connect with God. Instead of choosing like the top pop songs of the day or like whatever, like I'm actually going to listen to worship music to start my day off. For me, that sets me to a different mood. And you can totally experience God in regular pop, like I just fully believe that God is moving in all things and like God, like the Holy Spirit is active and alive, and so we can experience, if we look for God anywhere, we will find God. Yeah. Even in the most secular of places and in the most popular songs that come out today, right? But I think there's something intentional about being like, worship music actually sets my heart just in the right space, and that's a really easy way to connect with God on a regular basis. So there you go. Connecting with people, recognizing where you feel joy, your passions, get outside.
Wow.
Listen to worship music. Boom.
Just like that.
So there you go.
So good. Yeah, those are How are we doing on time?
I think that's probably
cruising.
good.
So, those were our questions for today, for this episode. I think those were great. Everyone, we have more questions still that you guys submit. Feel free to keep submitting them.
Yep.
They've been great. We'll keep answering.
Yep.
Sweet. So we're going to do our closing segment.
Last segment.
Last episode. I should say, so our closing segment called POV, Thoughts from My Quiet Time.
Yep.
And last week I did it, and this time we're going to have Ben do it. So his thoughts on his quiet time.
Thoughts on my quiet time. Okay, ready? So I'm going to do this. This is going to be a short one because I've been working through some of the Old Testament books that I've never fully read through on my own. Mm-hmm. I just graduated seminary, and I'm like, there's some of these of course, I've studied the totality of Scripture in seminary, but I haven't read and digested the content in some books. So I'm going through this on my own. I'm at the end of 2 Chronicles, which sounds super boring, but it's actually awesome. So, little brief background: Chronicles document, it's literally the Chronicles, the chronology,
Narnia.
the history. The Chronicles of Narnia.
Right, the Chronicles.
Yes.
I got you. That's my brain connecting the dots.
That's it.
I'm here.
So good. You're such a good Christian. Narnia too. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that. That was word association for me. I actually I've only read Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. I haven't really read the rest of Narnia. Okay. And I think I was maybe in 3rd grade, so.
Yeah.
We're getting off topic. Sorry.
No, it's...
Chronicles of Narnia. Here we go.
This is very much related. Chronicles document the history of Israel, especially when Israel was divided as a nation, right? So you had the nation of Judah, you had the nation of Israel, and they go through the different kings, and most of them, there was this whole story of it's judgment happens, people come and take over the Israelites because different kings didn't follow God. It didn't help the people turn back to God's heart. But every now and then, you get a king that does that. In 2 Chronicles, we have this section where, so it's King Hezekiah. And I'm just going to read this section. So basically, Hezekiah, he turns the people back to the God. He turns the people back to their God. He invites them to come back. He's one of the good kings in the story of all the chronicles that are mentioned, and he reestablishes the temple. And what happens is that he invites tons of people to come and to participate in kind of this ceremonial posture of all of Israel turning their hearts back to God. So people from all over come, but so many people haven't in this time you had to be ceremonially clean to worship God, right? This is a big deal. It's how people understood God's holiness. And so there's all these purification rites that people have to go through. And I'm just going to read the section. I'm just going to stop right there because a lot of people don't do this, but this is what Hezekiah, in this section, this is what's said. So although most of the many people who came from Ephraim, Manasseh, Issachar, and Zebulun had not purified themselves, yet they ate the Passover, contrary to what was written. So there's a grouping of people who didn't ceremonially clean themselves, and they're participating in the Passover meal, which was forbidden. They weren't supposed to do that because they weren't. Yeah, totally. This is, by the way, 2 Chronicles chapter 30, 18, and a little bit on. Okay, so they're doing that. So they ate the Passover contrary to what was written, but Hezekiah, this is so cool. Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, "May the Lord, who is good, pardon everyone who sets their heart on seeking God. The Lord, the God of their ancestors, even if they are not clean according to the rules of the sanctuary." And the Lord heard Hezekiah and healed the people. I love that because that is, so, we have this established rule set. To approach God's throne, you have to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And right in the Old Testament, what I love when you start to really get dig into the Old Testament, you actually see God's the same as before, now, and will be. He is always the same. This recognition. Hezekiah prayed that God who is good pardon everyone who just sets their hearts on seeking God, and then God does it. Mm-hmm. And so it's just the recognition that how do we, with all this stuff, God, even related to our questions, right? How do I experience God? How do I connect with him on a regular basis? How do I feel his presence when I'm close or far from him? Set your heart to God. Turn it to him over and over again. That's what we do. We're invited to simply turn our heart to God. And God hears it every single time. We don't have to be clean, whatever that means for us, right? Like, we don't have to have our stuff together. We don't have to have our life figured out. We don't have to be happy. Like, our life can be just in shambles.
Yeah.
And what is it? Just seek God. Turn your heart to him. Seek God. God is faithful to hear that every time. That just stood out to me in my Devo time.
Very fitting with our questions.
Super good.
Wonder
God
why.
is pretty cool. Seek God with your heart. That's all
great.
we're invited to do. So
Yeah.
cool.
Sweet. What a good episode.
Great
I
episode.
feel like this was a great conversation.
It totally
I
was.
liked this one a lot.
I did too.
I'm excited to see future episodes and how we go from here. Quick plug. Continue sending us your questions. Literally, it can be as easy as text Ben and I if you have something randomly at any time. We'd love to hear it. We'll continue to post why did I say it like that? Post. We'll continue to post now on the Instagram. At MCC House.
We'll keep them anonymous for sure too.
But anyway, or come up and tell us in person. if you just think of something, like, anyway, we would love to get questions from you to continue on. But great episode, so much fun. Thank you all so much for listening. Again, this is our house podcast. I'm Katie Hill.
I'm Ben Zulsdorf.
We love you all so much. Ready for this, Ben? And
Always
remember, #, this is our house. Woohoo!
We did it.